Hi, good morning. My name is Tom, and this is my 1953 Mercury V8 flathead. Last year, the V8 flatheads, and I'm so proud of it. Well, it's just a Mercury. They had Montclairs and I think another model. Monterey, yeah. But this must have been the lowest of the line, and it's just a Mercury. There's there's nothing else about it. Just that's the only names on the car is Mercury. So I believe it's the lowest of the line in 1953. You know, I'm in my late 70s, so I've been in the cars since I could drive. And I was driving classic cars then, but they weren't classic cars. But I've always stayed in the classic car world all these years. And over the years, I don't even know the number. I've had 100 classic cars during my life, you know, starting from the 60s, and quite a bit in the last 20 years. I became a little more affluent, and I could buy, sell, trade, and stuff. So gone through a number of cars, but I always prefer cars of this nature, not Ford or Mercury or brand name, but survivor cars, and that's what this is. It's a survivor. And I have another one in the garage that's a survivor. And my last 3 or 4 cars have always been survivor cars, generally under 100,000 original miles, generally 1 or 2 owners. And that's the place I like to stay, in that arena. And you got to look, you got to search, but they're still out there. I just happened to be scrolling on the internet, and I seen it, and it jumped out at me. Never owned a Mercury before, hardly ever owned Fords. Always been a GM guy most of my life. But this one just jumped out at me. I seen the pictures of it. I got a hold of the guy, and he was older than me, and he had it for quite a while. The only reason he was selling it was because in his advanced age, it was just too difficult for him to drive. It's a 6-shift, and it's no power steering. So it can be a little difficult to drive. And he just got to the point where he couldn't drive it anymore. So I contacted him. It was through email. It was one of those Craigslist things where they don't put their phone number. You can only contact them by email. And usually that's takes a while. I sent him an email. Within 10 minutes, he called me. I was like, wow, this guy's real. We talked for a long time. It took me a month of talking with this guy, not to negotiate the price, because he was not negotiable, but just to convince him that I was the right guy, because he didn't want to sell to anybody, you know. And he goes, well, you got to come over and look at it. And it was in Folsom, California, up near Sacramento. And slowly I convinced him that I'm the right guy to buy the car. I want the car. And the other thing that was really good about it was, you buy a car sight unseen. And by the way, this is the first car in my life that I've ever bought sight unseen. I've always went and looked at a car. I've gone to Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California. This car I actually bought sight unseen. And he told me about the car, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when I got the car, he represented it 100% exactly the way the car was. I was so impressed. And it was scary because, you know, I sent him the money, and is this guy real? Turned out he was real and right as rain, and everything about the car was exactly the way he described it. So I was very impressed with him and very impressed with the car. And he gave me the history on the car, that he knew it. He knew it pretty well because the car was purchased new at Berkeley Lincoln Mercury in Berkeley, California. The guy owned it for John, what the heck was John's last name? John Sweeney, I bought the car from. John said he bought it from the original owner that had it for 10 or 15 years. He was getting old and he couldn't remember. But so John then owned it all those years up until when I bought it. And it went from Berkeley to the Sacramento area. And it stayed in Sacramento its entire life until it came here. So it's 99.9% rust-free. There's no cancer anywhere. There's a couple little bubbles here and there, but they're so slight that I'm not even worried about it.
And it is original paint. We need to make sure people know that.
Yeah, Nick, my friend who's a body guy, went over it. He said, I think it's been touched up in some places, but basically it's an original paint car.
Wow.
Because he found a place where there was maybe some damage and they fixed it and they repainted a section. But other than that, it's an original car. It's got the original flathead V8 in it, the Mercury V8, which I kid people, I call the Mercury the big block. Because the Ford's a 239, the Mercury's are 255, so they're the big boy motors, right? 10 more horsepower than a Ford. It runs like a Swiss watch. It starts. It starts right up. It's smooth at an idle. It doesn't stall. It doesn't hiccup. It just runs like a car is supposed to run, and it's all original. That's what I like about the car. It's all original. It's a fun car to drive. It's a stick shift, which I kind of like. Most cars are automatic, but it's kind of fun to get back and drive a stick shift again. Mm-hmm. And this has got the 3-speed with the overdrive, so it'll cruise at 70 miles an hour on the freeway. I don't like to run it at high speeds, but it will do it, and it's breathing fine. So like I said, I wasn't looking for this car. This car found me. This car grows on me. I like it more as time goes by. And there's a thing I've seen on a show one time. They say, you know what when the time to sell your classic car is? When you go someplace and you park and get out of your car and you walk away, if you don't turn around back and look at and stare at your car, it's time to get rid of it. And I do that every single time I drive this baby. I go to the park, I park it, I walk about 50 feet, and I turn around and just stare at it. And that reinforces my love for this car. Oh. It's nothing special. You know, it's a stick shift without power steering, without power brakes. It's hardcore drum brakes, hardcore steering. But it's just a blast to drive. And people, a lot of people, younger people especially, will come up, what is it? It's not a recognizable car. But older people know right away what it is. They just don't know the year. And the year is 53, which is unique in a couple of ways. It's the last year that they used kingpin front suspension. After that, they went to a ball joint. And it's the last year of the flathead V8. Which to me is really cool. This is the last ones that rolled off the assembly lines with a flathead V8 in them, which I think is kind of interesting. So that's kind of the history that I know of the car. So John had it all these years. He put the DeSoto cap, those are 57 DeSoto caps according to him. And he told me, those are kind of sought after in the hot rod world. People like them. I didn't know that. I like them. I think they look pretty cool. And he put the wide whites on it. Yeah, and thank you guys for allowing me to present the car. It's just a cool car.